Hello, everyone. If you've crossed the threshold of 70, you will understand that your life has witnessed many ups and downs. You have experienced joy, sorrow, success, and failure, and each moment has taught you valuable lessons. However, there is one thing that not everyone realizes. Each remaining day of our life is an incredibly precious gift. With the years ahead, we no longer have the luxury of worrying about things that aren't truly important. After 70, you'll realize that the mental and emotional burdens you've carried throughout your life may be holding you back from fully enjoying life. This is the moment when you need to decide to let go of things that no longer add value to your life. And more importantly, letting go is not a sign of weakness, but a powerful act of freeing yourself from unnecessary attachments. Imagine your life without worrying about the expectations of others, without carrying regrets from the past, and without toxic relationships that drain your energy. You will experience freedom and peace of mind. So today, let's explore 5 important things you need to let go of in order to live a happier and more peaceful life after 70. These things will help you live fully with the remaining time in your life, and more importantly, they will help you see life from a fresh, hopeful perspective. If you find this content helpful and want to continue receiving advice on how to live healthily and happily after 70, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. By hitting the subscribe button, you'll always be updated with interesting and helpful videos to live a life that's not only long but truly fulfilling. Let's enjoy the wonderful years ahead together. 1. Seeking approval from others. Live for yourself. Since childhood, we have been taught to please others, especially family, teachers, friends, and colleagues. We learn to act in ways that meet the expectations of those around us, sometimes sacrificing our own desires to maintain harmony in relationships. What seems like a kind gesture gradually becomes a habit. We are constantly seeking approval from others. At some point in life, living for the approval of others becomes a daily part of our routine. We worry about what others think of us, trying to change ourselves to fit the expectations of society. But do we really live for ourselves? Or are we just actors on the stage of life, constantly carrying the weight of others' expectations? When you reach the age of 70, you will realize that much of what you've done throughout your life may have been just an endless cycle of trying to please others. With all the experiences and lessons learned over the years, you gain the wisdom to understand that trying to satisfy everyone is not only unnecessary, but also burdensome. Life is too short to spend all your time living by the expectations of others. You've lived a long life, so why not live true to yourself, living with what you truly want, without fear of judgment or criticism from others? Let me share the story of my friend Susan, an American woman who spent her youth believing that life only had meaning if she made others happy. Susan was always the person that everyone in her family and friend circle could rely on to help, from organizing parties and events to making sure others felt heard and respected. She always felt responsible for making those around her happy, even if it meant sacrificing her own interests and desires. However, as Susan reached 70, she began to realize that although she had spent her whole life taking care of others, she had never truly lived for herself. One of the biggest changes Susan noticed was that every time she tried to please someone, she felt drained and lifeless. Her relationships with family and friends, though close, sometimes became heavy because she was always afraid of not meeting their expectations. Susan began to feel like she had lost herself. One day, after an honest conversation with her daughter, Susan decided it was time for a change. She started making time for hobbies she had long forgotten, like painting and taking walks in the park. She also began to make decisions without asking for permission or worrying about pleasing anyone. Instead of hosting a traditional birthday party for her friends, Susan chose a quiet evening at home, reading books and enjoying her favorite foods, which she never had time to savor before. Since then, Susan felt her life become much lighter and happier. She no longer felt the pressure of living up to unrealistic expectations from others. Her relationships also changed, as she no longer held on to unreasonable expectations, but instead built deeper, more genuine connections. Her true friends loved her for who she really was, and she began to feel the freedom of living authentically. This life is not a competition to see how many people you can please. Especially after 70, we should realize that time is not meant to be spent meeting others' expectations, but to live for ourselves. Susan courageously changed her life, deciding to live according to her own desires, and from that point on, she found joy and peace in her life. Live true to yourself, for you deserve a life of freedom and happiness, unburdened by the expectations of others. Remember, living true to yourself doesn't mean being selfish or lacking in compassion. It means respecting yourself, knowing your worth, and not letting the expectations of others define your life. Don't let the fear of opposition or judgment from others stop you from being true to who you are. You deserve a life of freedom, fulfillment, and mental peace. So, if you're in your 70s or have entered the precious years of your life, be brave and let go of the habit of seeking approval from others. Live for yourself, because it's the only way to truly experience freedom and happiness in the days ahead. And you'll see, when you live true to yourself, the people who truly care for you will always be there, loving you more than ever. 2. Regret about the past. Learn to let go and live fully in the present. Regret about the past is a feeling that many of us face as we grow older. Particularly for those of us who are older, when we look back at the long road we've traveled, it's easy to feel regret over mistakes, missed opportunities, or words left unsaid. We may blame ourselves for things we didn't do, or even for things we did that didn't turn out as expected. However, the most important thing to realize is that regret cannot change the past. The past is gone and cannot be altered. If you let these feelings of regret dominate your life, you will miss out on the wonderful opportunities in the present and future. We often live in a cycle of regret. We ask ourselves, what if I had chosen a different path? What if I had spent more time with my family, or if I had said, I love you, instead of staying silent? Would things have turned out differently? These questions can haunt our minds, making us feel uneasy, regretful, and unable to move forward peacefully. But in reality, nothing can change the past, and worrying about what's already happened only becomes a burden, preventing us from moving forward. Let me share the story of my friend Mary, an American woman who spent many years of her life making great sacrifices for her family and work. Mary was a mother, a wife, and a responsible leader. When her children were young, she was always busy with work and family duties. Mary didn't have much time to spend with her kids and husband as she would have liked, but she always felt it was her responsibility to do everything to protect and provide a good life for them. As her children grew older and became successful, Mary started to feel a lack of closeness in her relationship with them. She saw their achievements but didn't feel the deep connection she had hoped for. She often asked herself, if I had spent more time with my family, could we have had a closer bond? Every time she remembered the family gatherings, Mary felt regretful for not being able to spend more time with her children as she had wished. But one day, after a long conversation with her daughter, Mary began to realize that going back to the past was impossible. Her daughter told her that, even though Mary hadn't been able to spend as much time with them when they were young, what truly mattered now was what she could do in the present. Her daughter encouraged her not to let regret control her, and instead, to live fully in the present moment. Mary realized that instead of living in regret about the past, she could begin to create new memories with her family in the time she had left. She started changing her lifestyle, dedicating more time to her children and grandchildren, no longer letting work take up all her time. Short trips, warm family dinners, and intimate conversations became cherished moments that Mary knew were the things she could do now to heal relationships. Mary's story is a clear testament that regret about the past doesn't help us change anything. Realize that the past is gone, and we cannot change it. What we can do is learn to let go of regret and focus on the present. Instead of looking back at the past with sadness, we need to learn how to look forward with gratitude and hope. Life is not a series of unchangeable decisions. It's a continuous opportunity to change, to start over, and to live fully. Focus on the present because that's the only thing we can control. Every day is an opportunity to love, to change, and to create new memories. The important thing is not to let regret about the past stop you from enjoying the precious moments in the present. Live fully each day and let the past be a lesson, not a burden. You deserve a life without regret, where every moment is lived with love and meaning. 3. Toxic relationships. Let go to live lighter. One of the things that many people fail to recognize is toxic relationships. We often don't pay attention to those who make us feel drained, stressed, and anxious. Instead, We continue to spend time with them because they are close family, old friends, or colleagues, even though we feel uneasy inside. These relationships aren't the ones that bring us joy or love, but rather they pull us down, leaving us feeling burdened and exhausted. Especially when you reach 70, you'll realize that there is no reason to continue maintaining these kinds of relationships. Your time is precious, and you deserve to live in a healthy space surrounded by people who truly value you. Throughout life, we often find ourselves caught up in relationships that we feel obligated to maintain, even if they no longer bring us happiness. But when you reach a certain age, you begin to gain a clearer understanding of the value of time and mental well-being. You will realize that continuing to hold on to toxic relationships only causes you to feel weary and lose the joy of life. Let me share the story of Linda, a friend of mine from California. Linda is a middle-aged woman, very gentle and always ready to help those around her. Throughout her life, she dedicated a lot of time to old friends, especially one friend named Diane. Diane was a friend Linda had known since college, but over time, their relationship became more strained and negative. Every time Linda met Diane, she always felt tired and drained. Diane constantly criticized Linda's way of life, telling her that she wasn't successful enough, not strong enough, and that she never did enough. Every time they met, Linda had to listen to these criticisms without being able to defend herself. This made Linda lose her self-confidence and joy. At first, Linda thought this was Diane's way of showing concern. But gradually, she realized that Diane was only hurting her without considering Linda's feelings. When Linda turned 60, she began to realize that she no longer had time to maintain relationships that were damaging to her mental health. After an honest conversation with another close friend, Linda decided it was time to end her relationship with Diane. She no longer accepted the criticism and negativity from this friend. Instead, Linda began to spend time with people who truly loved and appreciated her. She started getting involved in community activities, meeting people with similar interests and values, people who made her feel comfortable and happy to be around. Linda realized that when she let go of this toxic relationship, her life became much lighter and more joyful. She no longer felt stressed every time they met, and she could focus on positive, loving relationships. Linda's story is a clear example of how toxic relationships can destroy our mental health and happiness. We often maintain these relationships because of a sense of duty or long-standing friendship, but when we look back, we realize that they no longer add value to our lives. Instead, they only diminish the quality of life, making us feel tired and stressed. Remember, there is no reason to hold on to relationships that drain you. Time is the most precious thing we have, and you truly deserve to be surrounded by people who love and appreciate you. Let positive, energy-giving people into your life and let go of relationships that no longer serve you. After all, your life is yours, and you have the right to choose who will accompany you in the remaining years. Life will be so much lighter when you live with people who truly care, instead of those who only make you feel exhausted. We need to learn to love ourselves enough to reject toxic relationships and welcome those who bring joy and peace. Live a life free from negative relationships, and you'll find that you have more time to enjoy the things that truly matter. 4. The fear of death. Accepting and living fully, death is something that cannot be avoided, and as we grow older, it becomes more apparent. When we are younger, death may seem like a distant concept, but as we enter the later years of our lives, we start to feel its presence more clearly. However, the important thing is not to let the fear of death control your life. Instead of living in constant worry about death, you can choose to accept it as a natural part of life. Once you no longer fear it, you will find value in the present moment and live more fully. Accepting death doesn't mean giving up on life or resigning to it. It's actually a way to live more fully. When you realize that death is an inevitable part of life, you begin to appreciate each moment and live more freely. If you continue fearing death, you'll miss many precious moments that you could enjoy right now. Let me share the story of Jack, an older friend of mine from New York who spent his life fearing death. Jack was a very careful person, always thinking about the future. But for many years, he was consumed by a fear of death, and that fear dictated how he lived. He always felt that his time was running out, so he couldn't live fully, unable to enjoy the small moments of life because he was constantly haunted by thoughts of death. Jack had a full life with family, work, and friends, but in his mind, everything was overshadowed by his fear of death. He felt he didn't have enough time to accomplish everything he wanted, and he would often remind himself that he had less time than others. This caused him to live in anxiety, unable to enjoy simple moments like a beautiful morning or a family dinner. However, one day, during a conversation with his best friend, Jack realized that death was inevitable. His friend shared that instead of worrying about death, he could begin to live each day as a gift. Once you no longer fear death, you can fully enjoy life and do the things you love without being haunted by the uncontrollable. After this conversation, Jack decided to change his perspective on life. He began to spend more time on small but important things. Morning walks in the park, meeting friends, long conversations with his children and grandchildren. He also got involved in activities he loved, like painting, traveling, and relaxing with hobbies he had neglected due to worrying about the future. Since then, Jack no longer feared death. Instead, he lived fully with what he had, and he found peace in his heart. The fear of death no longer prevented him from enjoying life. He learned that accepting death wasn't giving up, but rather the freedom to live fully in the present moment. Jack's story is a clear example that accepting death doesn't mean surrendering, but it's a way to live more fully. When you no longer fear death, you'll learn to appreciate life and the precious moments you have. Living in anxiety about death only causes you to miss out on wonderful opportunities in life, instead of enjoying every remaining second. Remember, death is not something to fear. Instead, use the awareness of death as a reminder to live each day fully and meaningfully. Life is not a race. It's a series of precious moments that you can enjoy if you leave your worries and fears behind. Live fully, love those around you, and never forget that each day is a gift. 5. The feeling of being unable to change. Don't let age stop you from growing. One common belief that many older people fall into is the feeling that they cannot change. They think that once they've reached a certain age, they no longer have the strength or ability to learn, renew themselves, or try new things. Especially when they reach 70, it's easy to think that life is nearly complete and change is no longer necessary. However, the truth is that you can change at any time, as long as you have the determination and are open to embracing new challenges. In reality, age is not a barrier to change. Older people can continue to learn, grow, and evolve both mentally and physically. Change not only makes you feel more alive, but also brings you new energy, helping you experience joy in life at any age. Opportunities to learn and grow are always around us. We just need to open our hearts and be ready to accept them. The story of Dorothy, an older friend of mine from Florida, is a clear example that it's never too late to change. Dorothy spent much of her life working as an office employee. She had been with her job for over 40 years, and when she retired, she started feeling like her life had come to a standstill. She thought that at her age, she was too old to learn a new skill or try something entirely different. She worried that opportunities like these had passed and could never return. But one day, she heard about a painting class offered by a community center. Dorothy had always loved art since she was young, but she had never had time to pursue her passion because of work. She felt both excited and a little nervous as she decided to enroll in the class. She wasn't sure if she could paint well, but she decided to give it a try. In her very first class, Dorothy felt like she had found a part of life she had long forgotten. The lines, colors, and creativity opened up a new world for her. After a few weeks, she began to feel a noticeable shift in her soul. Not only did she find a new creative outlet, but the lessons in patience and freedom through art also brought her a new sense of energy. She realized that age wasn't something that should prevent her from pursuing her passion and changing her life. These changes made her life more interesting and colorful than ever before. She even joined an online English class because she wanted to learn a new language to communicate with international friends. Now her weekends were no longer dull, but full of creativity and learning. It was a major turning point in her life, and since then, Dorothy felt that her life had become much more meaningful. Dorothy's story is an excellent lesson for all of us, especially for those who believe that age is the reason they cannot change. The reality is that there is no age that is too late to change, learn, and grow. If you have passion and determination, you can always start over and pursue dreams that you never had the chance to fulfill. Every day is an opportunity for you to learn something new. No matter your age, you can still find joy in learning, creating, and challenging yourself. Life isn't a race to accomplish every goal. It's a journey to explore and develop yourself. Don't let age be the reason you give up on unfulfilled dreams or desires. Open your mind, embrace new opportunities, and allow yourself to change because there is still so much more exciting to come. Remember, change is not just for the young. It is for all of us. New experiences, new challenges always bring new life and joy. You can change at any time, as long as you are ready to step out of your comfort zone and embrace the new. As we enter our 70s, the remaining years of our life become clearer and more precious than ever before. This is the time to reflect on ourselves and what truly matters. Things like seeking approval from others, regretting the past, maintaining toxic relationships, fearing death, and feeling like we cannot change are mental and emotional burdens that no longer serve us in our current life. We no longer need to live according to others' expectations because our time and energy are limited. Instead, focus on living authentically, without letting regret hold us back. Learn from the past, and focus on what can be done right now. Eliminate unhealthy relationships because they only make you tired and stressed. Your life deserves to be surrounded by people who bring joy, respect, and love. At the same time, don't let the fear of death stop you from living fully each day. Death is inevitable, but living fully in each moment will help you feel more at peace. Lastly, never believe that age is a barrier to change. You can still learn, grow, and live a meaningful life. Let go of mental burdens, open your heart to new opportunities, and live a lighter, freer, and more fulfilling life.